The best thing you can say about Anno 117 Pax Romana is that Ubisoft haven't marched in and torched another one of their long-running franchises. There's a proper city builder tucked in here, no doubt about it, but it's juggling some odd design choices and a campaign that has a horrible whiff of AI meddling. You'll spot genuine improvements in places though, and then out of nowhere, Anno 117 trips over its own sandals and makes you wonder who signed certain ideas off. So, where does it now their Roman orgy dream, and where does it crumble faster than a cheap Roman monument? Well, put the kettle on, grab a cuppa, and let's go Times New Roman in today's review. I'll start off by saying it straight, but the campaign, it is utter shite. Proper watery crap you wouldn't feed your worst enemy, let alone slap on your mum's Sunday roast. It should have been a treat, a nice bit of Roman drama to ease you in, but it's been cooked within an inch of its life. I barely made it through a handful of missions before bailing out into the far superior sandbox mode. The whole thing then, it just plays like a stretched out tutorial with dialogue that feels AI generated, delivered with the enthusiasm of a toddler. The plot, absolute nonsense, and the campaign visually is cheap, not charming cheap, genuinely naff, with cutscenes that look ripped off from an off-brand Hallmark daytime drama. People have already accused the game of slipping AIR into the mix, and Ubisoft rolled out the classic "these are placeholder assets" excuse like we haven't heard that 20 times this year already. Maybe it is AI, maybe it isn't. Either way, the mission objectives, the constant handholding and the sheer monotony of it all will have you wanting to jab a fork straight into your eyelids. Thankfully, the sandbox mode saves the whole bloody thing. It's miles better and you can still learn the ropes thanks to a great tutorial system that pops up exactly when it should instead of nagging like your ex. So, what's actually new this time around? Well, first up, you can build diagonally. I know, hold on to your pants because the excitement is too much to bear. But jokes aside, one of my long-standing gripes with Anno is how the cities always ended up looking like an American grid system, no matter how hard you tried to build otherwise. The diagonal buildings now, they do give your settlements a bit more of that European flavour, even if it still looks stiff in places, and yes, that's what she said. Then you've got specialists that you can slot into key buildings like your governor's office for a little bit of perkage or buffage. Nothing mind-bending, and honestly, if you forget to buff your towns, you aren't going to lose out drastically. Combat has also been given a shake up here, dipping a much bigger toe into RTS territory. And honestly, I'm torn with it. I actually like the new system because it is basic as fuck. Pick your lads, point them at trouble, job done. But part of me worries they'll push it too far, and next thing you know, we're micromanaging formations and pretending we're Caesar's private tactician, and we forget what Anno was all about in the first place, that being a great city builder. Knowing Ubisoft, if they do go full RTS, they'll probably sell you the ability to flank left for $4.99. Ships have had a glow up too, with more customizations on offer, which is handy because those buggers are far more central to our empire building than they ever have been before. And that's because of how the world itself is laid out. Anno has always thrived on exploration and settling into new lands, and that is still its greatest strength here. Here you're going to be juggling two separate regions, the Roman and the Celtic, each dotted with islands that actually feel distinct and useful instead of just filler. Expanding is essential too because half your resources can only be found in specific locations. I needed olives early on, but my home island couldn't grow so much as a sad little branch. So off I went, living the spirit of my British colonials, marching across the sea to claim a fresh bit of land and turn it into one giant olive plantation like some deranged Mediterranean landlord. One thing Ubisoft now then is the UI during this phase. Hover over an island and it instantly shows you what minerals and crops it can produce. No digging, no faffing about, just clean info so you can make quick decisions instead of flicking through menus like a bored admin assistant. And as your empire grows, you'll inevitably wind up annoying every neighbour within rowing distance and juggling what to do with all your shiny new resources. You've got two main approaches here. keep materials on the island where they're produced and flog them to whoever wants them, or do what I did, set up a proper trade route and ship the finished goods back to your main island so your fancy residents can get their posh upgrades. And honestly, this is the dopamine hit of Anno. One resource turns into another, then two of those get mashed into something more important. Before long, you're knee deep in production lines, watching it all click together like a naughty little factory puzzle. You'll start thinking like a logistics gremlin, making sure every mining hub has a warehouse nearby so the lads can drop the raw stuff off, and the blokes crafting the next stage can pick it up without wandering around like lost kids at Disney. It sounds complex, but Anno explains it wonderfully well. The iconography is clean, the menus make sense, and once you understand the rhythm, well, the whole machine becomes stupidly satisfying to run. But of course there are risks with all this expansion. No one wants to live next to a pigsty that smells like Satan's armpit. That'll tank your appeal faster than a tax hike. Then you've got charcoal burners tucked away in the forests, and those things love to set half your settlement on fire the moment you look away. One spark and your lovely Roman town turns into barbecue night. So you're back in full city planner mode, keeping everyone healthy, clean, safe, and not living next to something that could explode. Before long you'll be laying down aqueducts to bring in fresh water and diving into a frankly massive research tree full of upgrades, buffs and little tweaks that will make your citizens' lives cushier than what they actually deserve. And that there is where Anno 117 shows its depth. You can easily sink hundreds of hours into perfecting supply chains, refining your trade routes and beautifying every square inch of your empire. I can't wait to see what some of you lot build once the inevitable avalanche of DLC drops. I suspect we're going to see some right good cities, especially when you start seeing these grand landmark buildings thrown into the mix. So far then, mainly so good, but Anno isn't without its headaches. The biggest one for me is the pacing. It's slow, painfully slow at times. Even on the highest speed setting, the game still feels like it's taking the scenic route to get anything done. Now, some grind is part of the charm, sure, but when you're forced to play on fast forward just to get your tech tree moving or waiting for a shipment to finally crawl its way home, it stops being cozy and starts feeling like admin. And it's a shame because the moment you crank the speed up, you end up missing half the beautiful little details the game wants you to notice. This has been an issue for me personally in the series, and Anno 117 still hasn't nailed that balance. Early game especially can feel like wading through lukewarm porridge. Next up is performance. Now, in first playthroughs it was as if my system had Tourette's and would spurt out fast-paced action followed by slow-paced action. That, in fairness, did seem to die down after a few hours and hasn't returned since, truth be told, so not sure if there was some sort of shader compilation going on there in the background. However, what is inexcusable is the number of times this thing has crashed on me. It's happened far too frequently for my liking, and whilst I know it will get patched out, it still pisses me off that this is still happening in this day and age. By the fourth crash, I was screaming filth at my monitor like I'd walked in on my girlfriend riding my neighbour Dave. And then we get to the UI, and look, part of it is great, like I said earlier, but other parts are a proper pain in the arse. I cannot stand this business of clicking on random faces just to access whole categories of buildings. I don't care who these people are, what their job title is, or why they are staring at me. I just want clean, simple icons that tell me what I can build, not some bloke's mugshot acting as a button for a drop down to the warehouse building. It's clunky, it slows you down, and it feels like someone tried to add personality without asking whether anyone actually wanted it. And here's possibly the biggest issue of them all, especially for you Vetro Anno folks. I'll admit it, I'm fairly new to the series. I've only played the last couple. I loved them, got proper hooked, but even I can't shake that sense of deja vu. New setting? Sure. A few shiny systems? Absolutely. But is there anything here that genuinely feels groundbreaking enough to scream full price release? That is the real debate, because while I'm having a great time with Anno 117, I'm not convinced I'd cough up the full asking price if I wasn't reviewing it. It's familiar territory, sometimes a bit too familiar, and long-time players are gonna feel that more than anyone else. Graphically, Anno 117 is an absolute tour de force. easily one of the best looking builders I've played in years. It proves how much atmosphere you can squeeze out of tiny details when the whole thing is built on such a massive scale. I love zooming right in to watch the townsfolk milling about. Sure, they're basically glorified looped animations, you can't click on them or see their little simulated lives, but it still gives your cities a proper heartbeat. The ports, they feel alive, the taverns are full of rowdy lads, the market squares are buzzing with arguments over cows, and you've got fat blokes enjoying a soak in the Roman baths as if it was Epstein Island BC. There's life everywhere here, birds overhead, trees swaying, waves breaking on the shore. It all adds to a world that feels lived in, like you're peeking into an actual civilization rather than a man-made blueprint. And the model work, great stuff. Houses are beautiful little details, monuments look carved rather than copied, and the islands themselves are full of rugged ridges and rock lines that both block you from building and make the world feel more natural. The day-night cycle seals it for me, watching your ships cut across the water at sunset while that fog of war hangs off in the distance. Lads, it is gorgeous stuff, especially for a city builder. My only gripe is that some layouts can still look a bit grid-like, as mentioned, even with that new diagonal tool, but nonetheless it is miles better than what we had before. Sound-wise, it's very much a game of two halves then. The dialogue and script writing are proper wank. We said it earlier, but it really does feel AI tinged, and genuinely I hope it is AI, because the alternative here is that Ubisoft is paying actual humans to produce lines this lifeless. There's no charm, no personality, nothing that makes you lean in and listen. It's just a beige noise. Thankfully though, the soundtrack is absolute stellar and saves the day. The orchestral score is gorgeous, slow, sweeping, properly cinematic stuff that lifts that whole experience. Add to that the brilliant ambient sound design, merchants shouting over each other in the background, roosters kicking off at dawn, birds chattering away. It is the gentle scrape of tools that signify a blacksmith doing its work. Suddenly, Anno 117 becomes a deeply atmospheric world to inhabit. So yeah, the advisor voices are shit, but the soundscape itself, absolutely top draw. Scoring this then is a strange one. Some parts I loved, others I hated. Calling it one step forward, two steps back doesn't quite fit the bill here. Instead, it's more of a sideways shuffle. Anno 117 is still addictive as hell. Building towns, expanding your empire, annoying the neighbours, all that classic loop is still magic. But whether these changes justify a full price tag, I'm not convinced. The performance wobblers are there, the campaign hits you like a wet fish, and that lingering AI smell hovering over parts of the game doesn't exactly inspire confidence. It all leaves you a bit hesitant to fully embrace what should have been a triumphant Roman comeback. My hope is simple then. The DLC will clean up a lot of this mess. If they tighten the pacing, polish the campaign and add some additional meat to the bones, then a Game of the Year edition down the line might genuinely be worth your cash. But right now, well, unless you're getting this on sale, I can't wholeheartedly recommend it to veterans or newcomers alike, because it does feel a little half-baked in places. Until next time, my lovelies, love to you all, Reggie out.